Hello everyone. Good afternoon. How are you doing? I hope you can hear me. Uh, as usual, all the communication directed to me can go through the chat. I ask you to keep your microphones off so everybody can hear the presentation. I will collect the questions during in the chat during the webinar. And as soon as we are done, I hope I will be able to answer them, all of them. As usual, I remind you that this is the second last episode, the last one about frequency coordination. The title, I think, was a little misleading because I called it advanced settings. There is nothing too much advanced here. But I put this part of the training in this category just to highlight the fact that if all the things we learned so far can be applied regardless if your show is big or small, complicated or easy, in this specific episode we'll go through some settings that most of them requires to be used in specific conditions. Otherwise, you can have your safe coordination without knowing some of these things. But of course, it's good to know that they are there. On another note, few days ago was released a new version of Wireless Workbench that I'm not using for the time being. I will be using starting Tuesday and next Sunday for the last episode of this webinar. And we may also chat a little bit about what's new in the software. But for this lesson, as it's, I thought it was okay to stay on the old one. Plus, I always recommend to let at least a few days pass from the moment the software is released to the moment you use it for a show or you use it for a public webinar, just to make yourself comfortable with it. So this is why I'm not using the latest version of a software that was out 4 days ago, but I hope you don't mind. Oh, just let me. Yes, it's okay. I hope you don't mind, and we'll go through the new version of the software Tuesday and next Sunday, and we'll see what's new in there. So, good afternoon from Dubai. I read in the chat. Yeah, guys, good afternoon. Finally, the lockdown has been a little released here in Dubai. We are again allowed to go out without asking a permission, just in your area, but it feels good to be outside walking again. So, and I wish everyone the same. It's a beautiful sensation when you can go out without asking for a permit anymore. So, situation is moving on, and I'm quite sure that very soon we'll be back to our shows. So let's dig inside the last episode of frequency coordination. Before then, we will have the sixth episode of this webinar. It will be about the monitoring page and, as I said, the new version of Wireless Workbench. So, what is about this? What are this advanced setting about? So first of all, what I want to do, we are now very familiar with inclusion group. I will establish an inclusion group. Oh, yes. And it will be TV channel 21. We call the group just exercise. And, oops. And then we select the TV channel 21 as our inclusion group. Then we go here, we pick up some Shure UHFR devices, for these. We have to select G1E to be in the same range. We assign them to our inclusion group, and we pick, let's say, 16 of them. Okay, and we try to coordinate them. Of course, here it's The view is now very wide. Let's narrow it down a little. So we can see more clearly what's going on in our frequency coordination. Yeah. Okay, here we have our channel 21 highlighted, and we have all our UHFR have to be concentrated in this 8 megahertz TV channel. So when we hit calculate, we get only 10 out of 16 frequencies. But let's say, oh, but I don't really need 10, or in case we already saw that we may need a more robust coordination, let's see what's changing if we calculate with a robust compatibility profile. We get only 9 out of 16, and you can see that the devices are spaced a little wider. In the same way, if we calculate more frequencies, we get 12 frequencies, and they are a little more narrow. Now, very shortly, we will see what are the parameters affecting this calculation and how they change in regards of a compatibility level. The last thing I want to highlight on this page about compatibility level is that we can decide to exclude from our calculation certain things. I'll get some new frequencies for that, and yeah, clear it. We get some device that is a little more sensitive to intermodulation to see it better. We add it here. And when we highlight the compatibility profile of this SLX, we can see, of course, the compatibility profile itself, but we can also exclude some phenomenon from our calculation. What does it mean? That we may know that for some reasons there is not going to be intermodulation of 3 transmitters, because let's say they are spaced on a table regularly and they are not moving, or whatever, they are, like, I don't know, couples around. So we can also change and exclude this. How this is affecting our coordination? In standard mode, I can get 5 frequencies. If I exclude this value, third order 3 transmitters intermodulation, I may get something more, and actually I get 6. So there is a chance for us to make our coordination a little more aggressive if the situation allows us to do so without affecting the compatibility level. Why we should choose one way or another, this is depending on what we know about the show. But to dig a little more into the compatibility level, we need to open another topic, that is the equipment profile. So for every device in our, we already saw this page quickly for previously when we were talking about exclusion, but now we dig a little more deep inside this page. When we have all our equipment, you know that Shure Wireless Workbench can coordinate Shure devices as much as third-party devices. And we have a comprehensive list with some of the major manufacturers, but some are not there for different reasons. Mostly technical reason. There is no politics behind it, just that with these devices we have a very clear and solid information to base our profile on, while in some other cases this may not be so easy and so clear, or some companies are doing a lot of custom projects, so we don't want to mislead anyone, so we prefer not to have a specific profile for certain devices that are not always the same, even though the model is the same. But let's see what is here. This will help us as well to build our own profile if need be. So if we encounter a device that is not in this list, we may be able to build our own profile for this device. And let's see SLX again. We have to select the band. And we have all the profile details, including obviously the manufacturer, the model, the band, the transmitter power, and the device type. These details are actually not really affecting our frequency coordination. Wireless Workbench does not take into consideration the power, the transmission power into coordination. Then we have information about the tuning. So frequency range that this device can be tuned off, that is the same of a band, and in this case it's 470 to 594. Step size 1 kilohertz, but we know that actually SLX has fixed frequencies. So we cannot really select our frequency. We need to stick to these frequencies that are given by the manufacturer. If we look at something more flexible like Axiom Digital G56, we don't have specific frequencies. We can tune Axiom Digital wherever we need in steps of 25 kilohertz. So it's this is depending on the device itself. And then we have the parameters of filtering and intermodulation. So the first thing we see here is the choice of a filter. It can be a tracking filter or a fixed filter. Now, most of the, let's say, more modern and top-tier devices have a tracking filter. Some of the oldest devices or more entry-level, they may have a fixed front-end filter. What is this front-end filter? The front-end filter is the capability of a receiver to see what is around it. So if I have a tracking filter, this is moving according to the frequency I select. Therefore, it will be a little more specific. If not, it will be fixed, and the name it's self-explanatory. Another thing, we can decide if it's an intermod source or not. So how do we know if this is going to be an intermodulation source? Basically, we know it from the fact that it goes next to other transmitters or not. For linear monitors, very important to remember, but if they all go to the same antenna and most likely in the same distributor, in the same combiner, they will definitely be an intermodulation source. But if I'm using a UHFR with a PSM 1000 in a point-to-point connection together next to a wireless microphone setup, in this case it will not be capable of intermodulation, so we can untick this box. But for the time being, let's stick to what is there and let's try to understand. Filter selectivity. It's how wide the filter is. Wireless Workbench, Axiom Digital has a pretty wide opening because it's a wideband device, even though it's tracking. So the second parameter is channel spacing. And sorry, I forgot to mention that the complete opening of a front-end filter for the coordination will be considered as the space where other things can influence the receiver or not. Let's say that in more frequencies mode, so here on the right side, I will not take into consideration whatever happens 55 megahertz above or below the selected frequencies for this receiver. If I'm more conservative, I can be up to 90 megahertz above or below, and in standard mode is 70 megahertz. So we are talking like anything happening in this range will influence the receiver and will be taken into consideration. Channel spacing, is how far my device needs to be from the next carrier. So how much space does my device need to survive and to be healthy? And then we have intermodulation products. Depending on how selective we want to be, we may have, again, 3 different values depending on the compatibility profile. On the left side, we have 2 transmitter, 3rd order, 2 transmitters, 5th order, 2 transmitters, 7th order, 9th order, or 3 transmitter, 3rd order. These are the most common intermodulation products that may happen in our setups, and that may affect our receivers. If you are curious and you want to know more about intermodulation, stay tuned, because I'm assuming shortly, early May, we will start a new training that will be the wireless masterclass. I know that some of you already went through it. The wireless masterclass is explaining whatever is behind this software, what happens on the other side of our monitor. So there will be a quite good explanation of intermodulation and our basic concepts of RF. That said, here we can see how our compatibility profile is affecting the calculations, and we can even decide, for some reasons, to fine-tune some devices to have a coordination that is personalized, that is exactly what we need for a specific event. Building a profile. Very quickly, I just want to guide you to how to build your own profile once you get the information that you require. Let's say that today I go, it would be nice, I go to a show and I find this microphone made by a mysterious manufacturer called Andrea. That happens to be my name, so I'm not making anyone unhappy. And this device is called Super Analog. Better, Super Digital. I have some problems typing. Okay. The band, I call it Z band. And transmitter power will be very powerful, 50 milliwatt. Now, as soon as I start modifying the manufacturer and the model name, I have available a save option. This is meaning that I can, let's say, change the profile of an Axion Digital. In example, if I get a new band, or for any reason, like I want a super aggressive version of Axion Digital profile, or anything that comes to your mind. Or let's say that going back, I know that my newfound Andrea Super Analog this time mic will end up looking, I made it wrong, will end up looking like most likely it looks like an Accent analog, because it's analog, is amazing good, but it's a different brand and it's a different model, and I want to make sure that I discriminate it from Accent analog. So I call it Andrea Super Analog, and at this point I can save the profile in my library, even though now it has only the same parameters of Accent analog. I can go here and change everything I need to change according to my knowledge of a product, and then I'm good to go. I insert a new profile that at this point will appear here under manufacturer. It will be Andrea, model, Super Analog, and so on and so forth. So here is where we can build our own profiles, And here is where we can modify existing profiles. On top of that, we can look how the calculation are affected by for the different brands and models and whatnot. During my training, I stepped a few times and someone say, no, I think that this software is better than the other, or this, oh, I like another software better than this. There are different coordination softwares. I'll name one specifically, but I mean, some manufacturers, not all of them, but most of manufacturers are providing their own software to coordinate the frequencies of our microphones. Most of the cases, the limitation is that they can coordinate only their own microphones. So you don't have third-party options in other softwares as you have in Wireless Workbench. But there is a software that can coordinate frequencies for everyone, and it's intermodulation analysis software by Professional Wireless. Amazing tool. I'll compare Wireless Workbench with that, but the thing is valid for everyone else. Someone can say, oh, but this is more conservative, this is more aggressive, this is A, B, C, whatever. Bear in mind that you can have absolutely the same information into the calculator than any other software using the equipment profile. So if you find that for some reason on a specific device another software is more conservative and you want to be more conservative, or you're desperate, Wireless Workbench is not giving you enough frequency, but another one does, you can always change the equipment profiles in order to match what you need. Generally, Wireless Workbench is very conservative. So it gives you very safe frequencies, but you can push it and you can get more frequencies working on equipment profile, compatibility profile, and eventually channel to intermod spacing in order to get the frequencies you need. Is this an everyday thing? Only if you commonly work with 100 plus channels. Most of the time, the standard settings are more than enough to have everything coordinated safely and whatnot. But if you understood the point, if you know exactly the information that you are touching, if you know very well the show you're working on, here you can really fine-tune the software to serve every and each specific purpose. If you have further questions, feel free to ask in the chat. Now we move on and we move to zone management. So here I keep these frequencies. I have 16 frequencies of SLX. In standard mode, I can get only, I think, 5 of them in this TV channel. Probably I should, let's try to keep SLX. But I came to know that these 16 channels are not all in the same physical space. They are divided in 4 rooms. So let's see how we can tell the software, oh yes, we can get only 5 frequencies here, but technically we have 4 different areas that can be managed somehow independently. Let's get something a little more agile for this example, but we still want to play in the analog domain today. I feel very analog today. So Shure, and we go back to UHFR. G1E, 16 channels add. Okay, I always have my limitation. So my inclusion group is telling me I only have 8 megahertz to coordinate all these channels. I have 16 channels divided in, let's say, 3 rooms. How I tell it to the software? I go on Tools and Manage Zones. I have a default zone that is always there and cannot be changed. But then I have a plus button and I can build room 1. And then I can build room 2 and room 3. I have my 3 rooms, and we'll see this page later again, but for the time being I built my 3 rooms and I see them here. Now I move 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 channels into room 1. Okay. Then I move 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 channels into room 2, and the remaining, oh sorry, I moved 6 to room 2, it's fine. And then the remaining microphones are gonna be moved into room 3. My default zone at this point is empty, and I can hit calculate and see what happens. I get all the frequencies I need. How this happened? Because the software calculated intermodulation products to be avoided only inside the room, but it was not calculated between the different rooms. If I have different rooms, there is no risk that microphones in room 1 are intermodulating with microphones in room 2 or in room 3. Am I right? Usually so. But let's make it a little more complicated, and let's consider the option that room 1 and room 2 are actually back to back, very close to each other, and they may even have a common technical area. How can I be so specific? How can I tell it to the software clearly in order to prevent intermodulation between room 1 and room 2 and still benefit of them being 2 different areas compared to room 3? When I go to tools and I manage zones, I have a configurator like this. So when I'm building different zones, I'm not considering intermodulation to happen between different rooms. But if for some reason I think that room 1 and room 2 may intermodulate, I can tick this box and tell the software, hey, be careful, they are in 3 different areas, but room 1 and room 2 can still produce intermodulation because they are very close to each other, because people from room 1 can go to room 2 with the same mic or whatever the reason is. So in this case, my software will take into consideration this fact, and I will get different frequencies. Let's try to calculate again. As you can see now, I do not get all of them. I get only 5 out of 6 frequencies, while for room 3 I even have a luxury of a few automatic backup frequencies, but I will not be able to have 6 frequencies in room 2. So the software is taking into consideration that room 1 and room 2 may interact with each other and produce intermodulation. Now, in real life, how would I discriminate it, and how would I keep a safe zone management? First of all, let's be clear. If I can get enough frequencies without applying zones, that's the safest way, because whatever happens, the frequencies will be compatible. But there are 2 reasons why I may need to apply zones. One is that I don't get enough frequencies, as in the example. In this case, I can probably push, or at least I can try, to have some. Nope, cannot make it. I can. It's fine. Even if we don't get everything green, it's okay. There are 2 reasons. One is that I don't get enough frequencies, like in this case. The second one can be to have everything more clear when I issue my report. That is the last topic of today. So we already spoke in the past episodes about the fact that there is not a direct connection between what I do in the coordination workspace and what I do into my inventory. So here, if I sign and deploy, there is nothing I can deploy because I just got my frequencies into the coordination workspace. So let's build an inventory. That will be the inventory of my show. For this time, we can go with, what shall I use? QLXD. I never used QLXD in this training, so let's use QLXD. I get 16 channels, and they are divided in the 3 rooms. 1, room 2, I, and room 3. So I have my QLXD, room 3. I have my devices allocated to the different rooms. I go to my frequency coordination page. I import the new frequencies. And I hit calculate. Being QLXD digital, it's more efficient than a previous analog choice. So I got all the frequencies, including some backup. So I'm good to go. Now I'm managing room 1, but I'm not in charge for room 2 and room 3. I just give them frequencies. So what I want to do now is to issue a report. There are several different ways to do it, but there are at least, I'd say, several, maybe 2-3 different ways. One is the more unclear to me is to export the coordination workspace and re-import then in another session of wireless Workbench. But it's not really practical to do so because anyway, if I didn't grab the devices from somewhere else, from the coordination workspace, I cannot impose that this is the device that I physically connect at a later stage to the network. So it might not be the most comfortable way to do things. My preferred way would be to issue an inventory report. Here I can add and remove all the information that I need. Show and customer information first. Before we do it, just for your information, under the File menu, you have Show Properties, and you can write down all you need. Eventually add a picture of yours and whatever. So you can save information that can be helpful for you or for the other technicians, like your contact details and with the name of the venue and whatever show you're doing, the day of a festival, if it's a multi-day festival, and whatever is needed. Then we go back to report. We have inventory report here. We can show and customer information. We can show the active channels eventually with device ID and tags, backup frequencies, user group inclusion list. That, as you remember, it's a range that limits our it's our range that we put our microphones in. Eventually, active TV channels, if we are in a country where this is known information, other exclusion, I always recommend to keep it as clean and neat as possible, so all the informations that are not mandatory, uh, they shouldn't go into the report because they make it more difficult to read for other people. And here we can generate a report. So we have very clearly mentioned, okay, exercise, that's the name of my show, point of contact is Andrea, and here, oh, I still add some backup frequencies calculated for UHFR that I didn't erase, but still we have, oh, let me go back. Okay, I have 0 backup frequencies active. Do I have? Yes. Okay. I don't have this backup frequencies in the memory anymore. I do the coordination once again. And then I issue my report. Inventory report, so, and customer information, no device ID, no tags, backup frequencies, they can be handy to know. And then I generate the report. Okay. Now I have my 3 rooms clearly divided. I have my channels. I have everything I need to disclose, to share information with my colleagues and other members of a crew or whoever may need them. Then, how can I export it? I have 2 options. One is the PDF file that will look exactly like as we see here on the page, but we can also export it as a CSV file. Then I need to, yes, I can save it here, save as report for exercise, yalla, save it. So I can keep it in 2 ways and 2 formats. Why this? Because the PDF is just a document that I may enjoy printing and that's it. I can't use it anymore. But a CSV file, a compatible frequency list in CSV format can be imported in another software. So if someone has another session of wireless Workbench, in example, or is having a different software connected to different devices, whatever it is, this CSV file can be used and to directly import and export information, because at the end is an Excel sheet. So it's very simple and can be helpful in this case to be imported into another device, another computer or another software. The PDF is coming more nice and clean to see and may help us to, in example, it can be this information can be, taped around in a venue to make everyone aware about the frequencies in use, or to let everyone know that these frequencies are busy. Eventually, you can add a message like, okay, Andrea is your point of contact. If you come in with wireless microphones, please refer to him. This would be very helpful for broadcasters, ENG crews, and whatever. Or otherwise, if they just come in too much last minute when you are already busy with the show, or you're too busy to take care of the frequencies of ENG crews, at the least you can inform them about the frequencies that you are using. So this is a tool that can have multiple use. And last but not least, you can save it and share on a WhatsApp group with your fellow colleagues so they know where to tune their microphones in the different rooms. I hope it was clear. We have a question. we can use the zone feature for different bands and artists if they are performing in different time. This is a very good question because Wireless Workbench has not a timeline, but our festivals often do. So what would be the best and safest way to use the zone not as a physical zones, but as a temporal zones? I don't want to sound too science fiction, but I think the concept is this one. This is how I would do it. And we go back to the manage zone tool. We, instead of room 1, we call them act 1, act 2, act 3, and eventually act 4. Okay, these are the 4 bands that will be part of my festival. How do I configure the zones? In this moment, I'm calculating only channel spacing. But while Act 1 is going on, Act 2 may already be setting up. So I need to take into consideration a possible intermodulation between Act 1 and Act 2. But Act 1 will not interact with Act 3 and 4. Same for Act 2 with Act 3. There is an intermodulation issue there? Probably yes, because the guys may be setting up while the Act 2 is still playing. Same for Act 3 and Act 4. So this is another use of the flexibility of a zone manager. Because being flexible, we can protect the act that is playing, but we can still keep more space for the act that will come later in the day. So definitely the zone feature can be helpful for different bands, and yes, the flexibility of a zone manager can really help you to squeeze out all the frequencies you may need without putting the act at any risk. So if someone switches on a mic before it goes on stage, or even all of them, you don't run into issues because your coordination will be safe, but at the same time you're not considering all the possible intermodulation between a band that is playing at 6 p.m. with a band that is playing at 8. So yes, definitely this was a very good question, and I hope I gave you a good answer to. If there is any other question, you can shoot it now. I don't see much activity in the chat today, so hopefully it was clear. No, I don't see any other question. In case a question pops up into your mind, you are always welcome to use the form into the thank you email that you should receive after this webinar, or in the email announcing the next one. And feel free to ask any question you may have. I'll be happy to answer during the last episode that will be on Tuesday, so in 2 days from now, or in case you like it better on Sunday, it will be in 1 week from now. And if it's not strictly related to the topic of a webinar, I'll answer you directly without any problem. Always very happy to do so. You can reach out at Shure Mia email, that is support_miasa at shure.com, or my own email, that is granata, GRANATA _Andrea at shure.com. I think for today that's it. I hope to see you for the last episode of Wireless Workbench webinar that will be about monitoring. And I hope that you will also register for the next training that will be, I think, officially announced, or registrations will be opened starting tomorrow or the day after. So, and I hope to see you there. Thank you very much, and see you soon.